Alright, so if I remember correctly, we were messing with this button, and for some reason it's not scaling. Oops. Alright, enough about that. Button. Let me go into my inspector and see what's going on. So if I right click it and hit inspect, then I can check out what properties each of the things has. So we see, there we go, right here. This anchor tag has inside of it a button with a height of 100. So if I turn that off, then you can see that it gets smaller. But the question is, why isn't it working for this other, not that, for, where is it? This input. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, turn it off for both. What if I put it on this? Nope, no dice. Okay, well in that case, I'm just going to make them both buttons. Button for the class of btn, and then inside of their players. Alright, so now I was able to target two different things with not using IDs, but using classes. And you just invent a class name up. I called it btn, short for button. That makes sense to me. But the height isn't really what I want to change. I want to change something else. We'll make it a little bit taller. We'll make it, what if we do 120%? No, I guess percentages don't work on that. 20 pixels, which is probably what it is by default, 30. There we go. So now the buttons are a little bit bigger. Let's change the, what do we change about them? Why don't we change the border around them? So you might be wondering where I'm getting all these from. And just like the HTML cheat sheet from day one, I included a CSS cheat sheet for day 2. On here shows every CSS property ever, all 5 pages of them. Fun stuff. So if you see here, it starts off with background. You could change the background image, which is really cool. Why don't we do that? Why don't we add a background image to our button? So we use the background image property, and then we see a URL over here. So let's see what happens if we change the button's background image to some URL. And we'll set it to team. Some image of a team. Or baseball. Team. Sure, why not? Looks great. That's a high quality image. Alright. So URL, and then in quotation marks, I believe this is the right syntax. Refresh. And I think it's there, but it doesn't scale 100%. Alright, let's not do the background image on the button. We can play around with that later. But we could do the background color to, let's pick a fun color. Looks good to me. I like using hex, but that's just me. Don't forget your semicolon. Refresh it. And now both of them are green. We could change the font color. What? Who? Oh, who? What's the score? Wow. Dang. That's.
You really don't care at all about that.
Yeah.
So funny, you're like, whoa, man.
Yeah. That, like, can you imagine the stadium? Like, they're just going crazy right now. Like,
somebody was talking about Chicago right now. It's great. They're playing in Cleveland, but someone was talking about how I was on the radio coming in. I was hearing how crazy it is over on Railroad Drive in Chicago. It's like, in Chicago, this is insane for them. Neither one of these teams have even been in the World Series, since 1950.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. Cleveland's been in the World Series. Cleveland hasn't won since like the 40s, and Chicago hasn't even been in the World Series since over 100 years.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's still really cool. All right, so why don't we add a Google font? That'll be fun. So how do you add a Google font? Well, before I do, okay, we'll do it. So how do you add a Google font? Well, you go to Google Font. So it's fonts.google.com. Anyone want to pick one? I'll scroll, you say stop. Which one? Middle? All right, we're getting Oswald in here. So how do we get this font? Well, Google Fonts just updated their system. So I'm going to hit plus, and then boom, we got that in our little arsenal. If we wanted another one, we could, no, it just adds it to this little like side navigation thing that you could pull up later. So that's all it does. So it says two families selected. It shows the like a couple of things. So your selection, Bungee, Hairline, and Oswald. Embed your font, embed your selected fonts into a web page. Copy this code into the head of your HTML document. Couldn't have been clearer. So copy this code. How do you know this is HTML? Yeah, you see like this href and the angle brackets, right? So step one is to copy that. Right now I'm just reading this from top to bottom. So copy this, got it. Now should I put it before or after I use it? Before, right? So this on line 9 will import the font. How? How does that even work? Well, it's not magic. There's nothing magic about web design. I'm sorry to say it, but you will look at websites and you'll be like, oh, I know how they did that. Oh, they used Bootstrap for that. Oh, they did this for that. You'll know. So all this is a link to the Google font. So if I copy this and paste it in, what do you think we get? Just a whole bunch of CSS, right? Font family, Bungee Hairline, font style, normal. This is just Vietnamese. This is just CSS, really. And then they import some other stuff from gstatic.com. Right? There's nothing really magical about programming. So that's all I'm doing there. I'm importing it, and then step 2, specify in CSS. Use the following CSS rules to specify these families. All right, awesome. Font family, Oswald, sans serif. Okay, so I'm going to take that, and where did we want it? In our button. Every button? Why not? boom, font family Oswald sans serif. So now if I refresh it, whoops. Yep. So those two fonts will change. Boom. And there we go.
So Google is a family, CSS is a class.
What do you mean?
Well, so how many different fonts from Google?
We imported two, but we only used one. Yeah, we only used the font family Oswald. We could use this one. Why don't we do that? I'm just going to copy that as is. Again, this is straight from Google Fonts. So all I did is hit the plus to what fonts I want. Then it adds it to this little sidebar. And then it automatically generates an import statement for me. So here, see fonts.googleapis.com/CSS. What family is Bungee Hairline and Oswald, and it's a style sheet. Awesome. So it says to import them using that, and then you could use it in your CSS using these things. So let's change the Welcome to the World Series. We'll make that a different font. So here, Welcome to the World Series, color, border. All right, awesome. It doesn't have any IDs or classes, so I'm going to give it a class of, what's the font name? Bungee Hairline. Bungee Hairline. So anything with the class of Bungee Hairline. Why am I giving that a class instead of an ID? Any guesses? Why, like, an ID would work, but the fact that I called it Bungee Hairline, like, you should be able to give anything a class of Bungee Hairline and have it be that text. So let's say I wanted Major League Baseball to be in that font. Well, then I'd go to wherever Major League Baseball is, I'd give it a class of Bungee Hairline. And there you go. Now we have Bungee Hairline for multiple things. So to me, Bungee Hairline, or like the font family, should be a class because you're going to use it on multiple things. Whereas, let's say I called this, let's see, I'll give this an ID of like title, and then I could say title, font family, Bungee Hairline. How many times did I say Bungee Hairline? And that is an ID. So, do you see where I'm going with that? A little bit. So, you could either target things by what header or the title they should have, or what properties they should have. For instance, if I see here that this paragraph has a class of Bungee Hairline, I'm expecting it to have something to do with Bungee Hairline. I might not know what it is. Later on, I could say, hey, it's a font. What if I want to add multiple classes to things? Is that possible? Absolutely. How do you do that? You just add a space and then whatever other class you want. Like let's say, let me get rid of this. And I'll add a class of large font, right? So notice there's no comma in there. It's just separated by spaces. You could have as many as you want. Just separate them by spaces. So I created this class of large font that doesn't exist yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my CSS dot large font, and I'm going to make the font size 32 pixels. And there, it got a little bit bigger. Or, yeah, large font, perfect, 32 pixels. So this comes down to meaningful class names and meaningful IDs. Like this Bungee Hairline is meaningful. Large font, it makes sense. Right? If I just call this like prop 1, like What the heck? What are you doing? Don't do that. Awesome. Questions? All right, cool. We're going to do all this again on a whole another page. So we have that. And let's now play around with our teams tab. I kind of don't like the spacing of that. I don't like how it's so small and the letters are close together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bit of searching. So usually this is how you come up with CSS properties, or like this is how you learn them. When you want to do something, you just don't know how to do it. So right now I want to space out the letters, but I don't know how to do it. So what I'm going to do is CSS Letter Spacing, right? And then, oh, it's an actual property. So letter hyphen spacing, and then what do you do? Oh, by pixels. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to take that and target the buttons, whatever's in the buttons. And I believe we gave them a class of btn. So I'm going to go up to my CSS. Here we see btn, letter spacing. We'll try 2 pixels. Let's see what happens. So first we'll check the score. Still tie. They're in the 10th inning? What? They're... Yeah, I'm sure. And then they're going to wake up and be like, what did I miss? Who won? Like, yeah. Alright, I'm going to comment that out because it was taking too long to load. There we go. So we got that letter spacing in there. It's a little bit better. I want to make the font size a little bit bigger as well. And just so we see it, I'll make it 3. Oops. I will do font size of 120%. What is this 120%? Let me explain. So the font size 120% says is 120% of what it was. So 100% is like by default, right? Like the font size is just normal. And then 120 is just 20% bigger. And it's kind of funky because I didn't increase the size of the button. Maybe 110. No, it's fine. So I click on Teams. And then here we have the teams. Great stuff. Now let's style the teams and and get on with it. And it's really bugging me how history is not a button. With the, what's it called? Letter spacing? Letter hyphen spacing. Here we go. Letter hyphen spacing. I set it to 3 pixels. There we go. That looks a lot better. So when you click on Teams, we have this plain empty page. So let's play around with it. All right, let's. How are we gonna do this? Maybe we'll take everything from here. Done. All right, and we'll just play around with it a little bit. Maybe not. We can start from scratch. So the first thing I want to do is have a link back to the home button. So I'm going to have a button, home, and then have an anchor tag surrounding it. And what is my reference? What do I type here if I'm in the teams.html file? Just that. Cool, we've officially made our first little loop. Teams, home, history, home. Hey, players? Nothing. Cool. So now it's looking more like a website, right? Things are working. So when you click on Teams, I wanted to show a big ol' Cubs image and then a big ol' other team image, Indians. So I'm gonna go image, and I want to jump out of the pages. So // go into the img / Cubs.jpg. Duplicate that and change this to Indians. All right, let's see what we got. Boom. Wow, humongous. Let's scale those down a bit. So in my, why don't we have the third CSS, or the third way to add CSS to a page, an external style sheet. Now the way you do this is, why not make a new file for it, and a new folder. I'm going to make a new folder called CSS, and inside of that, a new file. I'm going to call this, what are we in? Teams. New file, teams.css. And that way I know that this CSS file is only for the Teams page, so I'm not importing CSS everywhere. You could also, we'll start with this. So teams.css, or if you just want to mesh all of your CSS together, you can, by convention, people call it styles, styles.css. And now anything in here, this is all CSS, anything. So h1 doesn't work, this is HTML. Body, background color red, works perfectly, it's loving it. So let's format these images, but before that, we need to link our style sheet with our HTML file. So how do you do that? Again, it's in the head. Why is it in the head? Because you want the styles to load first, meaning the colors and the formatting and the positioning of everything, and then you want the content to load. Right. What's that? In the head, yeah. So the head is where you import the styles or the CSS, and the body is where you add the content. So if you were just starting out and you didn't know how to link a CSS file to HTML, you would maybe Google something like how to link CSS to HTML, maybe. And then W3 schools, I'm guessing. Yep. No surprise. And here we have the 3 ways to insert CSS: external style sheet, internal style sheet, which is the same as embedding, and then inline. So external style sheet, with an external style sheet, you can change the look of an entire website by changing just one file. Awesome. So each page must include a reference to the external style sheet file inside the link element. Okay, so there's a link tag that goes in the head, rel, like relation equals style sheet, type equals text CSS, who cares, and the reference to that CSS file. So as long as we know what HTML tag it is, then we could just type in link, hit tab, and it'll auto-fill everything for us. So relation style sheet by default, and the reference to it. All right, now the fun part. How do I target my styles.css? Any guesses? From teams, boom, teams.html. So right now I'm here. I want to go out of the pages folder and into CSS and over to styles.css. We have to tell it to go into this folder. So that's what it sees when you do .. Exactly. And then just the file name. That's it. / Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If this was css.txt or .html, you can't really like go in there and get the style CSS from there. Yeah. There. So now anything I change in styles.css, it will be imported on line 8, and then these will get those changes. So the first thing I want to do is target these images, and I don't want to target every image using the element selector because that would target every single image. Like, what if I have a logo of my company there? Then it'll target that image as well. So what I want to do is I want to add a class. So here, I'm going to give them both a class of team logo, team icon. What are they? Team logo. Team logo. So both of them have a class of team logo. Oops. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to target anything with the class of team logo and give the height of 200 pixels. There we go. So now they used to be really big, but now if I refresh it, oh look, they're 200 pixels. Awesome. And the home button is still working. Oops. There we go. Very cool. Questions? Any questions about how I linked the two? Linking is very simple if you think about it algorithmically, right? Think about what you want to do. You want to link your HTML to your CSS, or your CSS to your HTML. It doesn't matter. So in the head of your HTML, you add a link tag and set the href, or the hyperlink reference, to that file. And that's it for every single page, yeah, until you get to React. Yep, so let's say I have this, let's say I want all of these styles, or maybe I want everything in the body to have a font family of Helvetica, background color of that like purple, and text align center, right? So what if I took that and put it in my styles.css? Now, when I go home, we get a disgusting website, right? What happened? Well, I just stripped out all of this from our index.html. So what I can do is I could just point index.html to styles.css. So check this out. Let's do it right above it. And it's a link tag, relation style sheet, reference to, any guesses? Right, why no ... Exactly, it's already in the same directory as the CSS folder. So right now I'm in index.html. I say, hey, you're here, but go into here, and then go play with styles.css. So now if I refresh it, woo! So it kind of worked. Oh, so why did that just do that in my index.html? Why is it blue and not that pretty purple? Well, I'm importing it on line 11, right? So on line 11, I'm saying, where's my CSS? Change the background color to that purple and all that. And then later on, I'm changing the background color to blue. So what I need to do is move this down a bit. There we go. That's looking a lot better. Why is that black? Was that always black? Maybe we'll move it at the end of that style tag too. Like how I'm doing it right now. with Command, Control, and then up and down. Yeah. Very useful. That's probably one that I use a lot. All right. So let's see what it looks like. Still the black ugly bar, but who cares? I do. I'm gonna change that. Div black. Let's discard that. There we go. And there. So teams, boom, home. Awesome. So now both of those files, the index.html and the teams.html, is it teams? Oh. Pages/teams.html are using the exact same style sheet. So anything I change to one, it will change on the other. All right. So what else should we do with this? Like maybe put the images on a new line. A grid. Use Bootstrap. Yeah. So Bootstrap does a whole lot of things for you, so you don't have to like start from scratch every single time. Like the grid system, right? And responsiveness. If I resize this, then it's not looking too great, right? But Bootstrap will help to make it responsive. So right now the images are going to always have a height of 200 pixels. But with Bootstrap, you can make it so that they actually shrink and resize. So right now, that's as small as I can get. It's not letting me get any smaller. So, yeah. Yeah. So, I actually had you guys install something called Atom HTML Preview. Is it Control-Shift-H? Yeah, Control-Shift-H. So what Control-Shift-H does, which in a second it should load, it will bring up another pane, there you go, and there's your website. So you don't ever have to leave the comfort of Atom. You can just write code and it will change real time. So here it says, welcome to the World Series. I can change that instantly. Where are we? Welcome to the World Series. The Cubs won the gold. The Cubs won. There we go. The Cubs won. And so it updates real time for you. It's great as a sandbox, but hear me out, never trust this. This is not what you think it is. This is not the browser. It is just, I don't know, it's not real. I guarantee you will run into issues if you only use that. It's fine for starting out. It's a browser because it's be fresh on save. So that every time you save your browser is freaking out. Score? Yeah. Yeah. So, the screen. Vertical at all. I don't know. Might be slow, but maybe. Or you could do on one side and then just add a, if you have a large enough screen. Like, don't try this on an 11-inch like MacBook Air. Yeah, so that could work too. So home, so that you go home, hit Command S, And where's my auto refresh? Well, if it doesn't, I think sometimes it doesn't auto refresh. I don't know. But if you go here, moving them in and click it and yada yada, your computer, your code full screen, code and the rendering. So cool. All right, it's a little file icon. I want it to be something cool. So what is that called? Well, it's called a favicon, Favicon, for your favorite icon. Let's just make it the Cubs because. So where does that go? Well, it goes anywhere in your head. I like to put it before everything just to like get it out of the way. And it's a link. Relation is icon and not style sheet. That's all it is. So if you give, if you add a link with a relation of icon, then it's going to add as that icon. Done. So now if I refresh it, watch that. Boom! Oh, we got the Cubs. And favicons are always square, so you'd have to crop that to make it look better. But now it's looking a lot better. I'd want to do the same things with the home page because that looks really bad. So always change your favicon to something cool.